You've been listening to the PastFx Patriarch Fuzz. This is a faithful and quality recreation of the Buffalo Effects Patriot Fuzz, which is now no longer made. Here's my clean sound. I'm running through my Fender Deluxe Reverb and I'm on the neck pickup of my Strat. I will change to humbuckers a little bit later on. So as you can hear, it's completely clean and it's got a little bit of reverb from the amp. Now we have the Patriarch Fuzz here. I have the sustain, tone and level set at halfway, and I have the mids and low controls all the way down. I'll explain why in a little bit, but this is what it sounds like with those three controls set at noon. So if you think this sounds a bit like a big muff, you would be correct, because the Patriarch here is based on the Buffalo Effects Patriot Fuzz, and the Patriot Fuzz was based on the Civil War Big Muff, which was made in Russia in the early 90s. Now, all big muffs have a tone control, which is kind of like a treble control, but as you turn it up, you start to lose a bit of bottom end, so you get more treble frequencies and less bass at the same time. And as you can hear, even with the sustain knob only half the way up, it's just got a ton of sustain, just like a big muff would. So let's test this out by turning this sustain up. And I could just hold that forever. It's not that loud in the room. I'm only on about 2.5 on the amplifier, so yeah, not particularly loud, but just days and days and days of sustain. So that's now on the bridge pickup, so you get a bit more definition. It just sounds huge in this room. The thing about Muff-style fuzzes is they really fill out the tonal spectrum, particularly in the highs and the lows. Now, one thing that this one has is it has a mids control. So unlike the tone control, which is very, very touchy, really for me, the tone control on big muffs only have a usable sweep from about 11 o'clock through to about 2 or 3 o'clock. The mids control and the lows control are quite subtle. So as I turn up the mids, the problem with having a really sort of scoop sound, and by scooped I mean having a lot of bass and a lot of treble and not much in the way of mids, is that in a band mix you can get completely lost. But having this mid control to just sort of boost those mids and will help you sort of cut out in those really sort of, I want to say, vocal frequencies. So for lead lines particularly, I think that mid control is very, very handy. now the lows control. I'm just going to turn the mids back to about to about noon. Big muffs are great for pulling off that really thick wall of sound type tone that is really a good foundation to sort of paint over the top of with other textures. Let's just check out what it's like in its lowest gain setting. So traditionally, big muffs still have a bit of gain right down low. So it's got a bit of gain, but it also loses a bit of top end as we turn the gain down. There we go. It's returned. So as you turn the sustain up, you really start to clip that signal more and more, so it becomes really compressed, and the more compressed it becomes, the more sustain you get. All right, now we have humbuckers. Yeah, that's a really thick and full rhythm tone. I was using both humbuckers there. The neck gives it the warmth, and the bridge gives it the bite, and putting them together with that sort of sound is just, it's huge. Let's see if we can set up more of a single note sort of tone. A little bit more bite, a little bit less lows, I think. Yeah, that's really thick. You know, there's still that sort of definition in the mid-range and the upper mid-range. But yeah, that's such a really sort of big, thick sound. G'day, Jason the Middle-Aged Gear Junkie here. Big thanks to PastFx for sending me out another one of their amazing Spectrum Collection pedals. I've been super impressed with all of the pedals that they've sent me out so far. This is the fourth in that line that I've played. The track that you heard at the beginning of this video, I wrote while playing through this pedal. It's just, it's an inspirational and amazing fuzz type tone. The fuzz tones from this are super smooth, as you would expect a really good big muff to be. Like all of the Spectrum collection, they are based on old Buffalo Effects pedal designs. Now, Buffalo Effects were a pedal company from the 2000s into the 2010s who have since disappeared. This pedal has a little bit of a backstory. So back in the late 80s, Mike Matthews, the inventor of the Big Muff and the owner of Electro Harmonics, went bankrupt. And he's decided to start a new company called Sovtek in Russia, just as the Soviet Union was collapsing. Now, he was able to get some manufacturing done over there using Russian parts, and he was creating what we know now as the Russian Big Muffs. Now, circuitry-wise, they are quite similar, but the components in them were slightly different, so they had a bit of a different sound. Now, in the early 90s, he produced a blue and grey Big Muff, which got nicknamed the Civil War Big Muff. And it was nicknamed that, obviously, because of the colour scheme, the blue and the grey. Now, Dave Gilmour from Pink Floyd picked one of these up around sort of 92, 93 and was said to have used it on the Division Bell album, which came out in 1994. Now, Buffalo Effects, because most of their pedals are designed around the tones of Dave Gilmour, they made a replica, which was their version 1. Then they came out with a version 2, which had 2 extra controls, which was a mids and a low control. If you put the mids and the lows all the way to 0, it should sound exactly like the Russian style muff. And PastFx, as they have been doing, they've been recreating this line of pedals in their Spectrum collection in a smaller enclosure, and they've done the same thing. So we have the mids and the lows control from the Patriot version 2. So if you turn those all the way down, it should sound pretty much identical to a Civil War Russian muff. By adding those 2 controls in, as I said before, when you turn up the tone control on a muff-style pedal, you can lose a bit of bottom end and it can be a little bit shrill, and sometimes you need to balance that out by boosting some lows and or some mids. So a pedal like this just it's that sort of Russian muff sound, but just with more versatility, which I think is super useful. It still has all that smoothness and that singing sustain that you expect from a muff style pedal, but it's just got that bit more flexibility. On the inside, we have an LED dimmer, which again, I've used for my videos because the cameras don't seem to like the LED. So I can turn that down, which I think is a wonderful function. And then we also have an internal dip switch, which also allows you to scoop out the mids and have a bit more of that sort of full-on scoop sound with lots of lows and lots of highs. So it is a very tweakable big muff circuit. Like all PastFx pedals, this is built incredibly well using quality parts. And I think they've done a really good job recreating the Buffalo Effects Patriot version 2. One of the things that I personally like is the fact that you can turn those mids and bass down, and it's like having a Civil War muff, and then by using those 2 controls, it's like a modified muff, which is it's kind of 2 pedals in one. I'll leave a link in the description below to the PastFx website where you can read more about the Patriarch Fuzz and its sort of backstory. You can also purchase it through their website, and you can also check out their other Spectrum collection pedals, which they have available, and I highly recommend that you do so because they're really, really great. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. I'll leave a link below to the Middle Age Gear Junkie Facebook page if you would like to join that. Other than that, my name is Jason. Have a wonderful new year, and I'll see you next time. See you later.